I am by no means a LinkedIn expert, but the one thing I have done is achieve a network of people within LinkedIn who are regularly in contact and have generated business. And LinkedIn is one of my favorite profiles because it's so fickle. Instagram, especially if you don't visit for a week, if you don't post for a week, you're going to lose followers. You have to engage before a post, after a post. With LinkedIn, it's much more simple. You can not visit LinkedIn for months at a time, and actually nobody's going to have left you, and everyone's excited to see what you've got to say.
Yeah.
One of the other things I really love about LinkedIn is that you can kind of brag without bragging. So in my eyes, it's an online CV. And actually it's the parts where you can put all of your best bits, and you should put all of your best bits, because somebody might know you in your current state, but actually they maybe don't know you in your previous roles, or and I think it's really good for people to know the story of where you come from to get to where you are, especially when you've got a kind of smaller independent business, because you wouldn't have always done that. Maybe you've worked within the corporate sector for a long time, and that brings some behaviours that maybe people would want from somebody who offers the product or service that you do or somebody else does. I think that there's a few simple rules with LinkedIn. One would be that your profile picture should be you rather than your product or your service. Your cover picture can be your product or your service, but it instantly makes you easy to find and recognizable. If you have a profile picture that isn't you, quite often somebody will search you and they don't know if they're finding the right person. Because quite often our LinkedIn email is our work email. It would be our personal one because we're open to job opportunities maybe and wouldn't want our employers to know, for example. So a profile picture is so important. And the cover picture is also important because it sets the scene of kind of your brand. Your bio should be really easy. So the kind of personal information should be that about me information that's on your website or within social media. It's something that you've rolled out a million times. And that continuity, I believe, is really important. As far as your career history goes on LinkedIn, that's very much a replica of if you were creating a CV, and as an independent business you probably wouldn't be, but if you were to be tasked with the task of creating a CV, your career history would be part of that. Hi Rachel, can you hear me? I'm hoping Rachel can hear me. She's just logging in. Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, hello.
Yes, I can. I didn't know it was working. How you doing?
I'm good.
Hi, Rachel.
How are you?
So just to Rachel, we've just gone through LinkedIn not being fickle, and it's unlike all of the other platforms in that sense that actually you can log on and not have visited for months at a time, and you won't lose your contacts. It's a really great way of keeping in touch with people that you've worked with previously, and it's the one place where you can brag without being braggy. It really is the place where your greatest work achievements should be, and it's really comfortable for it to be like that. Your profile picture should be you rather than your product or your service, and your cover picture be your product or your service, something that's brand recognizable. So maybe for you, for example, Toast would, logo, for example, would be your cover picture, but a photo of you would be your profile, so that people can instantly recognize from your profile picture that it's you when they're searching you. And quite often we will know somebody by first name, their company, and we know them by face, but we won't necessarily know their second name or their maiden name. My LinkedIn is Lucy Stent, knee nappet. So obviously people who've worked with me before I was Stent will then be able to find me as well, which I think is quite important for us women. I would recommend, have you guys got business LinkedIn pages as well as your personal own LinkedIn pages?
No. So we've basically got something set up and nothing in it. So we literally haven't looked at it or filled it in. So I'm not exactly even sure if it's set up as a business one or what. I do need to investigate.
So the thing is,
for me,
go on, Ian.
Sorry. Yeah, for me, I've got a business page which occasionally I post to using Meet Edgar. But to be quite honest, my drive is on my personal page because so much of my brand is me at the moment. They get me, so that's where I've put the emphasis really.
Okay. I mean, I think the thing is tailoring it to what's right for you. So for both of you, it's going to be very different. Rachel, I think if you're wanting to, and I don't know, and you don't need to answer this, but if you want to expand into like a larger corporate market where people, event planners would be going through you, then the business page would be brilliant for that, because actually you can almost cultivate a network of its own within the business, and then the business produces content, whether it's an article or a post, and you share it as individuals of that business, and you encourage the bands within Toast to do the same, to share the content, so that the business page becomes, a page in its own right. But never, one of my things is just never do more than you can manage. So actually, if it means you've got a business page, but you're sharing no content from it, then just don't do it. Ian, I think you're right. You are such a personal brand in your own right. I think it's, the rule could, almost flip with you. You could share your content.
Excuse me one sec.
Okay. So Ian, you could share your content from your page to your business page, because you are such a big part of, the business is you. So you could share that content, and then what that means is that your business page is always really up to date and current, and the topics are topical. I think one of the other things is sharing knowledge on LinkedIn is so important, and it's avoiding lifestyle style content. So avoiding Instagram style content on LinkedIn is really important, and showing your kind of business worth. So actually that's where really hard hitting articles, if you don't know where they should go, LinkedIn is where it is. And I think, Ian, that really counts for you. I mean, I think that's a big thing for what you do is your knowledge is so key. People would be interested to read an article in which you've written.
Yeah.
Have you got any?
One of the things we do, one of the things is that we often, I think not often enough, but we take blog articles from our website, but we rewrite them for LinkedIn and post them directly.
Perfect.
Now, there's the pros and cons for that, because you do need a different type of article on LinkedIn, slightly different. But on the other hand, if you do that, it doesn't drive them to your website. But if you put a lot of links into LinkedIn, the article doesn't go as far because of the metrics that LinkedIn use. They restrict.
Yeah, I think
the distribution, if you like, of articles that have got links there.
I think you're absolutely right. It isn't as savvy in its algorithms and the things that its power as far as how far it spreads digitally. But I think it's a little bit like passing somebody you haven't spoken to a long time in the street. So what I would say is it's a really good opportunity for those people who, we've all worked with people who have gone on and work within amazing organisations and have fantastic businesses, and their black book is almost available to you via LinkedIn, because by continuously keeping your presence up to date, you're letting them know what you're doing, and therefore you're remaining in their mind. And then when somebody needs a service like yours, you are hopefully the first person that then springs to their mind, and they can very quickly go, oh, I'm sure Ian said something about that. Let's search it on LinkedIn, and they'll find it immediately. So LinkedIn is, for me, is a bit more of an archive. Actually, it's really good. It's got a really good history, because it doesn't matter if the article is sort of out of date, it will always be there. And that is, a continuous knowledge bank almost.
Yeah, for me, I've just realised, playing around at the moment, I realised that my Meet Edgar LinkedIn requires entering the password every now and I've just realised that I've just re-established it. But my practice is to try and post an article daily at about 7:30 or 8 a.m. So that my name is always in people's feed, and then I also target, because I want decision makers in companies. I'll a couple of times a week I'll do one about 8:30 in the evening of sort of high level articles which are going to appeal to chief executive managers, senior managers, and that sort of thing, where I want them to say, hey, this guy can help us. And I last year I got a couple of pieces of work, and they were both through LinkedIn, and I'm sure that part of it was that my name kept appearing, and it just reminded them that I exist.
Yeah, and I think it's 10 years ago, the power of a website was huge, and people's traffic they would get through was massive. Where now I believe that they're all sit alongside each other. The social media, the website, the marketing, advertising, all of those things, events, they all integrate into one that just is a general continuous reminder and makes you accessible, and they all help each other to improve your SEO and all of those things. But I genuinely believe you can't really do one now. Some people 10 years ago used to say, I used to get 90% of my business through my website, and that was all we did. And now we get such smaller traffic, and I think that's because there are so many other avenues for us. And the power of keeping in touch with people across the other side of the world from your network of who you've worked with, you would just have lost touch with them if it wasn't for LinkedIn, because there are professionals that you've worked with that you would never be socially friends with, so therefore you haven't stayed connected with them via Facebook, for example, but they are so powerful to you because you can actually reach out via LinkedIn, and I think it's totally acceptable. So that probably leads me on to kind of LinkedIn etiquette. It's really all right to communicate and openly ask people for kind of business or recommendations or any of those things, but it's not okay to hound people, and it's not okay in my mind to befriend people who, if you request somebody and there's a tentative link, it's not really the concept of LinkedIn. You can try, but actually to then hound is not appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. The frustrations is those people that send you a connection request, and you know full well that they're doing it entirely because they're going to bombard stuff in the next few days. And I try and avoid that by I never send the connection request without sending a note explaining why I'm connecting and inviting someone to connect.
Yes.
And second, if I get a connection request and they haven't explained it themselves, haven't sent a note, I'll send a response saying more or less, how did you find me? Unless it's blindingly obvious to me, what's your interest? Is there any? And I may or may not accept the request at that stage, depending on what they come back with.
Yeah,
and that's a good way of filtering, because you want relationships, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a brilliant way of filtering. I would say for sure it's about kind of reducing the amount of communication and just being really honest. Actually, it's okay to connect with somebody who's a bit tentative, but with a message, like you say, setting out your intentions. And then they can make an informed decision, and vice versa. It's okay to ask where somebody found you. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic point.
Mm.
Rachel, have you got how much? What does your LinkedIn look like at the moment? Where are you with it?
I don't even know if it's got anything on it whatsoever, if I'm honest. And it's kind of on my radar to we're looking at social media generally, and it is on my radar that we actually need to put something on there. I suppose my question is, how often do you update content on there? And I know you were just sort of mentioning about updating or putting articles on and things like that. But is it something you can just set up and leave, or do you recommend that it's something you do kind of go on and sort of make sure that you seem like you're current and keep putting little newsy things on there? Or how do you feel it works well for the business?
I think the more you kind of conduct it it's part of your, oh, hello.
Sorry, we're doing this family style.
Oh, aren't you lovely? What's your name?
This is Jacob.
Hello, Jacob. It's lovely for you to join us. So I think, the more you do with it, the kind of the better the outcome would be for you. So if it becomes part of your weekly social media, fantastic. However, the reason I love LinkedIn, and I'm going to be completely honest, is I cannot log in for periods at a time and can utilize, I do see it for me a little bit of a black book of my network of extended networks. And not my current day to day, but people that I've met and worked with that are absolutely willing and open to support me, and vice versa. And it's really okay to have a period of time where you haven't logged in and then you update content. I think you've got to be realistic. We're all under time constraints, and we've all got to, the priority in a small business is to make the money and do the job that we've actually got to do. So it's the one that's the least panic. If you've only got 5 minutes to do a post, then the priority should be Instagram, because if that's one of the platforms you've got, because their algorithms are so they're so, I'm trying to think of the right word, they're very fickle in there, and they literally don't like you not logging on or communicating on a regular basis. So LinkedIn, if you logged in once a month and then uploaded more than one article, what Ian does is brilliant, because he is actually reaching out to people in a, he's communicating at a time that he knows that people that he wants to communicate with are online, and that's brilliant. That's really targeted. If you haven't got time for targeted response, just to have a profile that is representative of what you're doing at this moment of time as a professional and as a business, that for me is really important.
Good start.
So if somebody looks at my LinkedIn, for example, they would know what I'm getting up to now as a business, what I've got up to in the last 6 months as a business, how, me as a professional. It gives them all of that stuff in a glance, but it's not necessarily something I'm posting on every day. But it's very different. I suppose I am a business to business, but I don't think I'm a business to business in the same way that Ian is. His sole market is kind of business corporate. That is, LinkedIn is his number one, and absolutely should be, I think. Would you agree, Ian? He's frozen.
Yeah, I think that's generally true. Although I've just started dabbling with purely because of the collective, because a number of people, the collective,
Yeah.
are on Instagram. It's slightly the relationships and encouraging people and presence there, quite as if you like.
Yeah, it's quite a social thing, isn't it? Instagram and
and they to target the corporate market be in.
Yeah, I think you cut out a bit there, Ian, but I think
what you're getting your through both personal links and you know, post.
I lost you.
I can't hear Ian.
Yeah, no, I lost Ian as well. But I think what you were saying, if I'm right in, I think what you were saying is that for the corporate market, let me try.
Let me try.
I think what Ian was saying, Rach, was that the corporate market for LinkedIn would be, you know, really powerful for you.
Yes.
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we can't quite hear Ian at the moment. So, yeah, I'm gonna, and exactly. I think. Oh, I heard a yeah. We've got it right. I just heard a yeah from Ian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you back? Oh, you're back, Ian.
When you decide to go down the corporate route, yeah, I can hear you most of the time.
Oh, okay.
But
well,
I don't know why I'm cutting out.
I can translate for Rachel.
Rachel, when you decide to go there,
we're going. So, I think the best thing for me to do is if I could just share my. No, it's just gonna. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I doing here, Helen? I can.
Yeah, that's what you want to share.
So I'm just going to pull up my. Is it here? That's it. So this is my LinkedIn. So just at a glance, this information kind of mid-screen is my bio and information on me, which is generic throughout lots of different things that you will see. And recent articles. Is that someone's door or is it somebody? Oh,
Oh no.
It was, wasn't it? Okay, don't know. We thought somebody was trying to get in. Sounded like a doorbell.
No, it was me. I just switched to my laptop. Taking myself off the mic.
There we go. So kind of the information about current articles and posts, and then my career history, which just gives anyone a bit of an insight into me as a professional, and then we'll give people more insight into my background and projects that I've worked in and countries that I've done different things across. And what's really fantastic, and I said when we did the talk that I recently needed something for a client in the Far East, and somebody I'd worked with 10 years ago now works in the Far East and was connected with the right people. And it was a very simple, what should have been, my customer went, well, is there any chance you couldn't possibly know, could you, how we could go about this? With one message, I've managed to solve it, which for my client is incredibly great value for money because they've achieved something quite difficult instantly. And that's just because this network doesn't go. Once you've connected with these people, they don't leave you unless they're leaving LinkedIn. People very rarely, I mean, I don't even know how you unfriend, I suppose you just unfollow, but it's so rare. People so rarely do it. So, but my LinkedIn, I think just to the point of, it's got my name, it's got my business, it's got my profile picture, and the cover picture is very on brand. And then if you can see down for me, obviously this is how I then link into my company page. So multiple people within the business can be on the company. So for you, Rachel, you and Nathan could both have the company page within your personal pages and update that information. And then I haven't done anything on this.
That was just what I was about to ask you, actually, because obviously Nathan and I have got very different CVs between us.
Yeah.
So does it kind of go that you have your individual profiles and then you have a page that links to you that's to your company, or is it about you launch a company page and then as a side to that, your profiles are part of that? Does that make sense?
Your profile should definitely be who you are.
So what comes first, almost?
I mean,
so LinkedIn is you with your page that's your business, or should it be your business and you're part of that?
Okay.
Am I making sense?
As a work priority, my priority for you two would be do your personal LinkedIn so that they're a true representation of you as professionals. But as a business, it would be your business page, and then you share the business page information to your personal account. So you're kind of spreading the depth and width of where that information is going. In reality, what you want to talk about is the business. So the business information should be spoken about through the business page, but as almost treat it like you're employees of the business. As employees of the business, you're talking about the business that you work within. You're sharing it. The business is talking about it, and you're sharing it. You're as you sharing it, it needs to be true to who you are as a professional. So that's important. But I quite often would post as the Dainty Desk and then share within my personal page. So that, because actually your business page will never quite have the same traction as your personal page, because people do want to connect with people. It's like business pages on Facebook. People like to follow things, but people like to connect with people. And you have, I think I've got 1,000 followers on my personal page, where it's a really small number on my business page. But the more I share, the more one of those 1,000 people tend to follow the business page and just be a little bit aware of the bigger picture. For you, Rachel, it will be that people are aware that you start to become aware that Toast isn't just brides and grooms, it's a much bigger network of things. Is there anything else that you can think of? Any questions, Ian?
I just want to do any of you use the social selling index on LinkedIn?
No. Tell us.
Wow, that's something worth knowing about. So let me just. Are you able to let me share my screen?
Oh, maybe. I'm gonna get.
How do we do that, Ian? Do I need to go somewhere?
If you stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you just give me a sec, I'm going to share I can now share my screen. So, find the right one. Got 20 million open here. You can Google this social selling index for LinkedIn, and it will give you a link. And when you click on it, it gives you your score. There are several things. So it gives you an overall index of 58. Now, this is as low as I've been in years. But the reason is because I said my account connection between Meet Edgar and LinkedIn had expired, and I forgot to renew it. So, but you see how it measures this, and what we're doing. So establishing your professional brand, and then you can obviously get help and links towards that. Finding the right people, engaging with insights, and building relationships. So you can see that one's some of them much higher than others. It's got your weekly index, and mine's dropped right off. And then people in my industry and where I am, and people in my network. Now, my normal score is somewhere at 65. The only problem that leaves me is that I then enter into the sort of top 6% here, and the top 10 or 11% here. And that means that's bad news, because I'm in the best in my bracket. And so consequently, I'm not being exposed to people outside of where I need to go. So this is where I typically am quite weak, finding the right people. So I'm not as proactive as I need to be, and if I did, then my scores would maintain high. But my these particular things, I don't want to be right at the top here. I don't want to be in the top 1%. I want to be someone who's always got more to go and find. It's a really useful score to see, and if you're down in the 20s or 30s, it just tells you, hey, you've got a lot of work to do to make this person more active. So all you got to do is just Google LinkedIn social selling dashboard, and it'll say, show me mine, and it'll give you yours.
And is that a paid for service, Ian?
No.
Fantastic. No. Even better.
You can do more with it. Because they want you, this thing here, the sales navigator. That's why LinkedIn are in it. They want more. Right. They want money.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, I know there are a lot of sales-based industries that heavily use LinkedIn, and recruiters, for example. There's a recruiters package on LinkedIn that recruiters pay a premium so that they can almost headhunt people that they don't know that aren't within their network and message them directly on a really high volume. So there are some additional add-ons that can be done. One of the things for you, Rachel, within your page, there's kind of like a percentage. So it will lead you through, and it will highlight, your career history or your skill base is missing. It will always talk you through step by step. So as you're doing it, just give yourself a task that maybe on a Thursday, as you're building it up, on a Thursday, you spend half an hour each Thursday just doing the next stage of your profile, and it will lead you through what's missing, and it will tell you that your profile is 80% complete or 90% complete. And it's very easy to use and navigate in that sense, that you will automatically see your profile building, and it becomes a bigger picture until you have that CV template product thing that you're really, really happy with. And it's very good at that. And then what Ian just showed us is obviously the next stage for that, which is extremely advanced, and not what you would need, but it will be exact. It's great for Ian because, like we say, it's such a big part of your business sales. It's a big sales tool for you, I suppose, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing to do, of course, is to get recommendations. So what you're really looking for is if you work with someone or for someone and they are linked in get them now. I guess there's two steps. One is if your website's good and active, you can case studies section on your website, but sometimes there is an element where you want to also keep it on there. So once again, if I just do this towards the bottom of my profile, you can see here that I've received some recommendations. I also am active in giving them as well. So if I think down here, who's over in the Republic of Ireland, the NFL trainer, I did a Zoom conference with her Insights Discovery profile recently, and I just said, would you write me a report? And she wrote something. She technically got something incorrect, described Insights Discovery incorrectly, and then there was a grammar mistake. But what you do, you get sent it by a message saying this is it, and then you can request an edit. and send it back, they'll change it slightly so it fits your sales image, and then it gets posted.
Yeah, that's very true, and the fact that you've given as much as you've gotten, like for like, which is the one thing that's great about LinkedIn, is that it is really acceptable to ask for a recommendation, and it's lovely to give one because you're likely to get one in return, and it's, again, like you say, it's very good to show where your brand is and your story. So that's equally good. Recommendations are brilliant because you then can copy them and put them on your website or put them on marketing material. So it is something that if somebody's going to recommend you, especially kind of from a corporate perspective, if you're in a business where you're selling a product to a consumer, it may be that the recommendation would be more powerful on Facebook, but the recommendation within LinkedIn is for a service is, it's gold dust. And it wouldn't, and you can use a recommendation forever. It's never going to age. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I just had an invitation from Helen to join LinkedIn.
I'm in the background trying to set my awful profile up and make it better. But it's perfect time to do it.
Yeah, I think that in common with an online CV, and I think that there are two types of people on LinkedIn. There are those who are working but looking to keep their CV up straight in case something comes along for a new job. And there are those who are in it because they've got their own business and want to expand that way. And when it comes to CVs, to be quite honest, I'm not interested in anything you did more than 10 years ago, unless it's particularly unusual. I want to see what you're doing now. So I've deliberately cut out a lot of the things I did in, I've got a slightly longer track record. So I've cut out a lot of the stuff in my earlier years, just because I don't want to have people call.
Is that because you feel they're not relevant?
I want them to see what I do now.
Okay.
Well, let me give you an example. I spent 5 years working in branch banking, between the ages of 18 and 23. To be quite honest, that is so far ancient history. But what I've achieved in the last 10 or 15 years, say, is more. I want to show the breadth, but also the focus of what I can do. And so that's what I've done. Somebody brought me a CV recently, and this guy is 30 years old, more or less. He's got a first in degree in university, looking for another job, and he put down how many GCSEs and what grades he got. It's quite honest, that's totally irrelevant. He could have best or worst. And I'm interested in what he's done lately. He's proved himself at the first. He's got the ability. So I would say,
I think
focus on the more recent and
I think you might just be a little bit of an exception to the rule there, though, Ian, that a lot of people, it's not about not what they do. What they do now is obviously much more important, but actually what they've done is a backstory of trust. And if you don't know that person, you're completely right. What you did at the very beginning of your career is almost irrelevant now. However, if there was a 10-year gap missing in the middle of your career, where you had 10 years and then you've removed 10 years and then you've got another, there would be a huge question. And I think for women especially, we had this conversation when we kind of did the talk about that there are a lot of women who have, quite a substantial gap in their career because of babies and things. And the career that they had before is still really, really important, even more so to who they are, because
absolutely.
I think they are what they're capable of.
Yeah, in that situation, what you've got is you're showing them what you've done in the last 10 or 15 working years of your life. Now, for most of the people in this particular conversation right now, that they're actually very difficult, but not to include, because you're all young enough to still have a working life for 15 years. But having said that, it's not about having a gap. It's about taking off the bottom stuff.
100%, which
You know,
is
if the first job, you know, was you know, filling shelves at Tesco, I don't need to know that, because I can see from what you've done more recently, any lessons that you learn from that, you know, to my mind, are applied to the job that you've been doing in the last 10 years.
Can I butt in? Therefore, do you think it's better to shape a profile that showcases what's relevant to your business page only, or is it better to have a fuller picture that has all the maybe slightly random avenues that you might have worked down as well?
I think it's, for you, Rachel, it's a mixture of both, because the network would find it very strange if you didn't mention where you'd come, you know, what you've done. And they know you as that person who was in that sector. Now you're not in that sector anymore. However, I think it would be almost unjust for you not to. It's given you a skill set that you know you're going to talk 90% of the time eventually through Toast. So you know Toast will talk and you will share it. So I think you've got to be honest, but I think Ian is right in the sense that there are stuff that potentially isn't relevant to who you are. I think for you it's 50-50. I think there's knocking off stuff that is irrelevant, but your previous career isn't relevant. It's been the person that shaped you as the professional you are. It just happened to be in a completely different sector. Okay, well, do you think we've covered everything? I think we might have, covered it all. Is there any questions before I say adios?
I've got some work to do.
You have.
I better get started.
Well,
I just clicked on our. I just clicked on our. I realised that we do actually have a LinkedIn icon on our website, and shamefully, I've just clicked on it for probably the first time and realised there's 0 there, which is part of what we're identifying at the moment as part of our whole social media overview. So no, it's good to be prompted and nudged, and to have a bit of a boost to start that off. So I'll be getting on to filling that in soon. Thank you for.
Okay, well, it was lovely to see you both. Thanks for joining.